Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I wish all of you are doing good these days and you are practically getting ready for Ramadan. And this video is gonna be it's a special discussion only designed for the youth. So the question that we're gonna be discussing, it's a youth matters, if I wanna call it like that. It might seem a little bit silly, but it's so important nowadays to put the light and reflect the lights on some matters, because our youth, they are educated, mashallah, no doubt. They are practically, some of them, they are too successful in the scientific field, but when it's come, the misconception about their religion is too high because of too much of problems was fed into their system through different institution, and the number one institution is the education institution, whether from their school, high school, public school, Islamic school, non-Islamic school, whether private school, universities, media, too much of factors practically. And you find this misconception is growing and growing, and our youth are practically too much off from understanding or having answers to these questions. Because ask yourself, why all this big deal about a month, Ramadan, and then the youth, they're practically watching the debates about how they suppose, to start Ramadan. Do they supposed to use calculation? Are they supposed to use, the pure science? And they were raised to respect the science, and they were raised to respect, it's almost like worshiping the scientist. And they're not understanding why the Muslim scholars, practically, if they believed about the scholars and they understand what the meaning of the scholars, they are having this debate between, using the pure calculation, the pure math calculation, while they are saying about the moon sighting and what all these debates. And they sometimes they watch some kind of debates, online, live. What this is practically is reflecting on them, because this is really literally reflecting on them, because they already have a misconception about their religion. They're not much into understanding these details, and they seem sometimes to be involved without them understanding the basic knowledge about it. So much of the time, even I'm going to call the most respectful youth with their knowledge, they have a small doubts when it's come to these stuff. Okay, let's them to use calculation, and the other one, no, we have to use the moon sighting. Now, I ask both sides, why both of you are suggesting either of the sides? Is it based on a knowledge or what? They said no, we heard somebody said something like that. So when it's come to this, we're practically putting our kids into the system to worship the science and the scientist, and they don't make no mistakes. I'm talking about, the scientist of the science, not the scientist of the religion, because we have two type of scientists practically. But the scientists of religion, we're gonna call them scholars, as it's known between the whole, the public, the Muslim public. So from that, we're gonna start the discussion. So they don't have a respect practically or understanding that the scholars of Islam, they are more than a scientist, okay? And they thought about every detail from Islamic perspective, which is the Islamic perspective did not deny the science side. But the Islamic perspective almost all the time it has to be overcome and overwhelmed with the perspective of Islam, nothing else. With full respect for all the different, scholars of the latest era. But this discussion, this is a problem because I'm not over here to discuss this. I'm over here to reflect that our youth, and I hope the youth right now that are practically listening to us, and they will listen to this video if it's not now after, they're having these doubts because in their mind, every Ramadan, people, they're not fasting together. And this is a problem the scholars or the leaders or the Islamic religious leaders, they have to fix this themselves, and they have to take care about it by spreading the awareness to the youth mindset to understand that there's no burden has to come on their shoulder. They suppose not to be caring much about that more than what they supposed to be during Ramadan. And why is Ramadan? And what is the responsibility of Ramadan? And why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about Ramadan? The wisdom behind it. Why the Prophet ﷺ in multiple ahadith, he just was preparing 3 months ahead about people for Ramadan. In the dua that he will start, in his way of fasting, in his way how he used to gather, the Sahaba and preach them about this kind of stuff, about Ramadan. So this is what we're supposed to reflect to our youth, so for them to understand the importance of it. And there's no problem for us to explain to them that the difference in the scholar's opinion about that. And let's say something so important. Suddenly for us, and this is a little bit critical, suddenly for us, we speak about the madhahib al-arba'a, the 4 school of thoughts in front of our youth. And a lot of our matter that's happening nowadays, okay? A lot of the matters that we are having nowadays, we do not use the 4 major school of thoughts, and we have to be legit and fair with the 4 imams, the prominent 4 imams, with the prominent 4 school of thoughts. What we are using, other people's opinions. Sometimes they might be their students, sometimes they might be not. And then because it was one of their students, we said, al-madhhab al-fulani or al-madhhab al-fulani, which is fine. I'm not gonna take this down or take this off. I'm not gonna discuss this again. I'm not trying to take sides. But the point that much of these matters are not belonging to any of these madhahib. This is the part that our youth, when they start understanding this, now they have a differences, different opinion, different perspective about the religion. When they understood that 99% of the matters, all the school of thoughts, they agreed on the same opinion almost. We're talking about, the matter of the matter of the faith. None of them have no difference in the opinion about any matter related to the faith, about the matter of the intention, about the matters of the actions, about the matters of the punishment, about the rewards. None of them, they have any difference in this opinion. You get my point? They have differences in the small tiny details, but the wisdom behind it, it will meet towards the same wisdom. They never even have the differences in the wisdom behind any opinion that they were laying out based on the evidence and based on the interpretation. But the funny part that is not funny, for example, let's say if you want to speak about the music, you want to know something, that the all madhahib arba'a, they agree, all of them, about that the music is forbidden. And then you teach all the time you kids about, about the 4 major school of thought, and when it's come to music, you want to use the opinion of al-mazhab al-zahira, that it's not even fitting or with all these 4 madhahib school of thoughts. Now, what is happening, this is a deviation, and I will refer this to the religious leaders. I will not refer it to the public, because it's none of this is not the business of the public practically. It's the business of the religious leaders that they're not caring about that. Do we understand this? Now, our youth, we're gonna focus on that. That was the introduction. What is Ramadan? And what's Ramadan supposed to mean for me after 1400 years in this century?
Now I was going to go back to the moon sighting this, you know, just a little bit because it is going to the public. Because I remember back in 2009, because my dad, he's one of the sheikhs, and not only does it have to do when Ramadan starts, also when Eid starts. And my dad, him and a couple of sheikhs from different masjids, they'll go and do the moon sighting. One masjid decided that they wanted to, they said, oh, Eid is going to be tomorrow. And my dad and these other couple of sheikhs, they saw that the moon sighting, that was not going to be Eid. And I remember this clearly because it was in 2009, and we were all in school when it was Ramadan. And there were some girls and some students who were with, it's going to be Eid. They said, you know, it's haram to fast on Eid. I said, I know, but tomorrow's not Eid because of how they saw the moon. And there was a big debate, and some people, they literally went and rented out somewhere to do the Eid prayer. And those students, they said, it didn't feel like Eid. I'm like, because it was not Eid. Because I said, all these other sheikhs said it was not Eid. And why I remember it so clearly, because there was another girl, her father also was a sheikh. He was that part of that masjid that said that was Eid. She put like, oh, my dad, he knows is Eid. And I was going to start a fight with her. And my dad, he was like, no, you don't do that. So it is something important about the moon sighting because everybody gets involved in it. Plus, so what happened, why I also remember it so clearly, because Saudi Arabia, they apologized because they also said that they made a mistake. And I was going to gloat in it and tell, like, all you guys who said my dad's not a real sheikh because of this, even Saudi Arabia, the whole country apologized. But my dad's like, no, we have to stay humble. And, even though they ridiculed him because of the moon sighting. So that's why I do think that talking about the moon is really important, because there are people who get involved and they want to ridicule other sheikhs about it. And they want to,
No, I totally understand. This is the problem. This is again, this is what I say. It's everything is related to what we want to do in our life.
Right. No, I was just saying
It
because
is
you
something,
talked a little bit about the moon. I
yeah,
was just
yeah.
giving my opinion on it of what
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're talking, and this is why I'm trying to say this is referred to the religious
Mm-hmm.
leaders because they are the one that they're supposed to be caring about, and that to reflect this information to the youth because
Mm-hmm.
we cannot just say that
Yeah, I know. It's more referred to the religious leaders because, as I said, literally people were trying to fight me in school because one of my dads was the sheikh that said it's not Eid tomorrow, and everybody got into this whole split up. It's like what your sheikh saying is a lie, and this sheikh is what he's saying a lie. Is both sides are saying both of you guys are liars, and that was like something really wrong because all of them were supposed to go together. Like some of them they went together. But there's another couple that they decided not to go, and they decided no. I don't know what happened over there, but they didn't go with the other, you know, imams of the other masjid in the county that we were living in.
this is the problematic, and this is what
And
I try to refer to the
yeah.
students when they ask about this type of question because they ask what we're supposed to do us. I said we have to understand what you guys supposed to do because what you
Mm-hmm.
guys supposed to do it's none of your business. It's the religious leaders they supposed to decide. And if we wanna follow the real tradition of the Prophet ﷺ based
Yeah.
on the hadith of Ibn Abbas, it's a athar from Ibn Abbas that he said this is how the Prophet ﷺ taught us that each region they have their own moon sighting though, so they're supposed to sight the moon themselves. Okay, I know we have a technological perspective. We could just decide each region or geographic
Now it's become
location, for
easier.
example,
It became
on
easier.
Earth, that this geographic location we could just say this is zone that the moon is gonna be sighted at that time, and the other might be not today, is gonna be after 2 hours from today. In that moment they're not gonna be sighting this. So I said, as you guys, as a youth, it's none of your business to care about that. It's the responsibility, practically Islamically, is the responsibility of the religious leaders, in your place that where you're living. For example, you have an Islamic center, your Islamic center that you guys attend is the one. So if there's a county or a city or geographic location that the masajid they have an assembly, they have to follow the majority because this is belonging to the unity. So if this assembly is the majority of the masajid and there's some people they decided to follow their own thing, I'm not gonna say it's fine because this is against the Islamic teaching of the unity. Okay, but you as a regular person, you follow the masjid that you are practically
Right.
you're attending, and you consider the imam of this masjid or Islamic center is your leader. But on another perspective, now we're not going to discuss this from the public perspective. From an Islamic perspective, the religious leaders in a geographic location, if they have an assembly and they decided the majority is the one that's supposed to be ruling, and the people they suppose they have a different opinion, they have to not going to say submit the will, but for this kind of type of events, they have to follow the majority.
Right.
Now, when this not happen, it's not your responsibility.
I know it's not
As a public, you're supposed to urge your leader. Why you guys you're not getting together? Let's get together. This is unity.
Yeah.
This is how we advise. But the youth that they have a lack of knowledge, they are considering this is we are fighting each other. So what this kind of religion that you cannot unify people?
Yeah.
Practically, Islam is to unify people. Ramadan is the one of the picture of unifying people. Like Hajj is one of the picture of unifying people. Like Umrah is one of the picture of unifying people. Like Jum'ah is one of the picture of unifying people. Practically all our mandatory act of worship, it's a picture of unifying people under one umbrella.
So as we're talking with you as a youth, don't let like the imams, make you confused because they are also human, and and there is the moon sign. It's much easier than 1,000 years ago.
Because they are right now allowed to use, the all the high technological,
Yeah, but now it's
perspective.
easier to really figure out. But don't let like you seeing the religious leaders, if they do that mistake, to confuse about Ramadan and
This is again because
it is about unity, and they're humans. They make mistakes.
this is our point, that the youth, that's also they need to just look at it from the perspective of them being Muslim, because some of them they are losing faith in Islam because they are losing faith in the religious leaders. They suppose not to, because the religious leaders at the end they have amount of knowledge. They suppose not to forget it, that they are a human being and they're gonna ended up to be committing mistakes.
Yeah.
We supposed to educate ourselves first and foremost, that we need to learn our religion. We need to learn our religion. We need to learn our religion. There's something called the bare minimum. We cannot just sit down and say, I don't know that. It's not my responsibility. This is not how Islam is practically educating us. Our faith, we are responsible about learning our Islam. So Ramadan, speaking back to Ramadan, that it's one of the major picture that is unifying and showing off of the unity of
Yes.
how we could be united. because in general all the Muslims that are practically practicing the same act of faith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command all Muslims to do, which is to be fasting.
That's one of the 5 pillars of Islam.
So if we're not understanding that fasting, the fact of us fasting in Ramadan, it's a unity by itself. It's just unifying all Muslim to be acting the same way. From, starting their fast, breaking their fast. Then they're going to have a day where all of them, they're gonna be celebrating, Eid. Now, all the time we think that all the world has to be starting their fast and breaking their fast at the same time, while there's not even one evidence telling us this. From the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, or the Sahaba opinion.
Yes.
And then we are, accusing our imams, accusing our religious leaders, accusing, sometimes even our, religion. No, if you have the lack of knowledge, go learn. Once you learn, then you understand more. But we have to understand at the same time, Ramadan, it's not changing by the century. The rules of fasting, it's not changing by the time of the century. The ruling as a core ruling. And that way we're supposed to understand. Because the scholars, if they said, that taking, the vaccination in the day of Ramadan, okay, it's not gonna break, your fast. Because these scholars, they sat down, they have been learning the religion, so they understand the cons and the pros, what you are able to do, what you're not able to do. So also sometimes we sit down and we start questioning the scholars' opinion like we are scholars. Yeah. Brothers and sisters, let's go and learn why these scholars, they said this. They say sometimes also it's too off. We start questioning the scholars' opinion. Why are you questioning scholars' opinion? Do you have the knowledge to start questioning scholars' opinion? If you find there's something wrong and making you feel good, okay, you go do some research, like how you do research about, medicine, about, science. Do some research about, the religion.
Yeah.
Go ask, the religious leaders of your place, let them to educate you. You do not yourself start deciding, oh, this is not right. I'm not going to take the vaccination. It's going to break my fast.
Or you can just reschedule it if that's what you think.
But this is, again, in what I'm trying to say, we are making among ourselves scholars and deciding. This is the problem. We are deciding. Like we have a big knowledge of Islam. We're not humbling ourselves and giving the chance for the religious leaders to guide us or to start learning from them. And then, we start, moving forward. So our youth, they are asking for knowledge. We're not giving them the righteous knowledge. Because our religious leaders, they have to direct more the youth by educating them the ABC of their religion. When I'm talking about ABC of their religion, specifically after passing puberty, we're still teaching after the youth, after they're passing puberty, the same way. That's how we teach, the 5 years old in our generation. The 5 years old at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, it was, phenomenal hadith that you could learn right now, and there's a books about it that was taught Ibn Abbas inside the hadith. Now, even after they pass to the middle school, in the middle school, they're still teaching them to pray. Not teaching them the pillar of the prayers. There's a pillars for the prayer. There's a pillars for the wudu. There's a pillars for, for much of things in Islam that they're not taught about it.
So, yeah.
This is the problematic.
Yeah, so that was just a brief of, don't focus on, okay, this is the day of Ramadan, not the day of Ramadan. That's not the main focus, because that's more of the religious, leaders. Now we want to talk about, what is Ramadan?
Ramadan is just a month that it's one of the lunar calendar month And this lunar calendar month, from the day of the creation of Earth that it's been, set up that way. These 12, lunar months. And the time the Prophet ﷺ, by the order and command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to put these months in time, because the Arab at that time, they used to make, something called nasi'a. It was mentioned in the Quran. So the time the Prophet ﷺ set up the months in order, there's a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ mentioning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, at that time, it's get back to the way at the beginning of the creation, when was created earth, it start to be fixed. We know the first house, it was, in Mecca. This is the first house was created from the time of Adam alayhi salam. So that was the foundation of all the this is our understanding, our belief.
I didn't know that, so.
This is our understanding and beliefs as a Muslims, based on our scholars, teaching that the foundation of all the creation and I'm going to say the civilization and the culture start off from over there. Because we knew that area, this Gulf area, it was practically green land. It was not desert. It started to be desert after years and years and years.
Oh.
Practically. And this is one of the sign of the Day of Judgments, that is gonna go back the way how it used to be, green land.
So when it starts to be like green again in Saudi Arabia,
it's one of the major signs, the essence of, the Day of the Judgments is getting closer. This is the reality, and we see lately too much of rain happening that themselves they're not understanding how to deal with it, and all the time there's
so it's scary that it's raining in the desert.
When too much of rain is gonna happen, it's gonna help out the sand to be turning around, and we're going to have to have some dirt instead of the sand.
Oh, so if you're thinking about it, it's going to be starting to be green. So it's going to be one of the major signs. I know already they have tall buildings.
Yeah. So getting back, so we don't go too off. So Ramadan is practically the month that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to choose it all the time for revealing His books. The revelation. Okay? Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the last revelation was the Quran was revealed in Ramadan. And the whole Quran was revealed in Ramadan. And in
all of it, or is the first?
Yes, but Ramadan also, it was the month where, it was chose. And if I'm recalling from our Imam over here, he was saying that the Prophet ﷺ, he practically was for 9 Ramadan. He's still alive, that he's practically fasting with the whole Ummah for 9 successive years of Ramadan. So my point from that, the Prophet ﷺ was able to teach us all
what we need to
know of Ramadan and the importance of that day, that is the day of Laylatul Qadr.
So thinking about it, that Ramadan was so important, it's like before he passed away, that he made sure that we know all this knowledge. That's how important it is.
And it was mentioned in the Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said in Surah Al-Baqarah, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان.
What does huda mean?
فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصم. So it's a mandatory. Whoever observe this month, and he just sighted the moon, he has to fast. It's a command. Al-Huda is just guidance.
Oh, God, okay.
It's the Quran is a guidance for people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said that this Quran was revealed in this month. Okay? And this month, whoever observed, and the Quran is a guidance for people. Okay?
Yeah.
And whoever observed this month, which is his side this month, is mandatory upon him to fast.
Mm.
So, like, we know this is, practically one of the pillars, the 5 pillars of Islam. And this is why it's practically one of the 5 pillars of Islam, because it's practically mandatory upon the whole Ummah. If you understand all 5 pillars of Islam, it's a stuff that is mandatory upon the whole Ummah to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's any exception, we'll fall into exception of people if they can't do it. In general, if I'm talking.
Yeah.
But almost all the time, the pillars in Islam, it's what is mandatory for the whole Ummah to practice.
What I learned when I was a kid, that they said that the shaitan, the devil, he gets locked up. And that the doors of hell is closed, right? And the heaven is open. I know, already, so I want to know why. Like, I don't know if I ever got that answer.
Okay, it's a wisdom behind the goodness of Ramadan. The goodness in Ramadan. That's why
the month of purity.
Yeah, that's why the any extra deed or the mandatory, the rewards of it is multiplied. Okay? So that's why the scholar, the Prophet ﷺ, starting by the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba, their student, the student of their student, all these scholars, they used to be the best of their performance in the extra good deed is in Ramadan.
Because it will multiply more.
Yes.
So we have to tell the kids that
There's at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, I was just reading this. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, two among the Sahaba. Two among of the Sahaba. They were in the war. One of them, he died in the war when he was, fighting for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the second one, he died after a year. So the Sahabi, I can't recall his name, he saw a dream about them. He saw the first one, he is in paradise, but he saw the second one that he died after a year of him. He's in a higher level than the other one. So he was saying this dream to the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, yeah, the other person, he observed Ramadan, so he was doing more good deeds, which is elevate his rank.
Oh.
So what we understand from this
hadith,
makes
sense.
This is what the Prophet ﷺ even emphasizing for us.
That
in
Ramadan
this narration,
really important.
How much Ramadan is important for even the believers themselves, for you to access in the goodness, to access in the optional prayer, to access in the optional charity, to access an optional any good deed. That's why a lot of the scholars, they will tell you that you have to make sure before Ramadan that you pure yourself and your heart from any hardship, from any harsh feeling, from any fight, for any problem, from any disconnection that you've been having with Muslims, whether they are, your siblings, your parents, your neighbors, your community members. You have to purify yourself from this, because you will come pure and you will gain the best out of the best from Ramadan, because Ramadan, it's just an institution that is help you out to reschedule and re-establish yourself to be among of the pious people. This is what is Ramadan is. And it's a place where you could purify yourself and you elevate from your rank. But subhanallah, so this is what I feel that we have to make sure that our youth understand the importance of Ramadan from that perspective, because there's a lot of them, they think if I'm fasting I don't need to pray, or if I'm fasting I don't need to make anything else. Fasting, it's not Ramadan itself, and fasting in Ramadan, it's not a place of you exchanging. It's not a substitute of another of another mandatory act of worship, so could wipe it off. No,
Mm-hmm.
this is not what is the meaning of Ramadan and fasting. It's like when you go to Hajj. If you go to Hajj, you don't pray. The same thing. If you go to Umrah, you don't pray. If you're doing charity, you don't pray. If you are, the five pillars by themselves, it's everything mandatory. You have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
When it's come to Hajj, it has a month. It has a time for whoever can. When it's come Ramadan, it has a time, and also for whoever he can, because there's the other verses coming from the first verses is whoever he's traveling and whoever he's sick and he can't observe Ramadan, so they have their special cases. So my point, none of these act of pillars in any way in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, if you're performing Hajj, you don't pray. You're fine not to pray. Or if you're fasting, you're fine not to pray. Because the prayer, it's by itself is mandatory. It will not stop, on people unless if they have a special case.
Like if if I know for me sometimes if you had I had a problem with migraine and I couldn't put my head on the floor, you can pray sitting down. There's people who are pregnant, they pray sitting down, and people who are old, or people have a injury on their foot, like a real injury. But I think as well, I remember only 1 year they taught, and I feel like you're supposed to teach your kids the punishment that you get if you don't pray. And I don't remember. I this like I told you, I remember someone when they used to try to teach us a lot about Islam when I was younger. I don't know if they're still like that where I grew up, but that they were saying about like snakes in your grave, tightening if you miss a prayer. Correct me if I'm wrong, because it was always in my back of my head, and I always I need to ask if that is true or not.
There is a specific punishment inside the grave. There is one of them. It is they. I can't recall. There's a snakes inside. As Sahih,
So
I
maybe
recall.
in the next
I
podcast you
recall.
may
I
answer it.
recall. There's there's a hammer. I recall. There's the practically the grave itself, it will just hug you, a hug that is gonna base on on your level. And there's other things, but I can't recall
Maybe
that.
in the next podcast we'll just do our research and ask some educated leaders and imams to make sure, because I just kind of right now came into my head that something I heard when I was younger. So maybe in the next podcast we'll answer that, if it's true or not, because that's what I heard.
Inshallah. So from that perspective, what I'm trying to say specifically, we need to for us as a youth to understand that fasting is not a substitute of any good deed.
Right.
It's just an extra, like is mandatory upon the people whenever they observe this fast. Okay, they observe this month. Now is the fasting is mandatory upon you because it's one of the pillars of Islam and is commanded inside the Quran among us, like we are commanded to pray. So prayer, it has its own time, it has its own place, almost all the time, every day. We're not talking about the woman. The woman, she has a specific day that she cannot pray. This is only for the women, not for the man.
And we don't even need to make it up too.
No, and we're not going through the details, but the man themselves, it's all the time. Anyway, you cannot pray standing, you pray sitting, you cannot pray sitting, you praying lying. As long you are able to move, you pray. Your mind and your heart are conscious. You pray. Then still the prayer is mandatory upon you. The prayer will never stop to be mandatory while you're fasting, while you pray, while you're doing Hajj. It's still the same thing because the prayer is something and fasting is something, and making Hajj is something.
I feel like a lot
We're
of people.
confusing everything together because we just have a lack of understanding. It's not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Ramadan, it's a place where people, everything they do it extra is multiplied. The reward is multiplied. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He left it for Himself, and He is the most rewarding, so He rewarded tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
He will reward tremendously, and we have to be caring about that, and not to take this off the subject and of the context. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us to pray. You want to say the wisdom behind it, and it's fine that to feel the feeling of the needy, of the people that they're poor, to feel the feeling of the people that they don't have food. Either way, in Ramadan, all these people, they have to fast. Unless if they can't fast, they're sick. I'm gonna tell you something. Fasting is mandatory upon the people that they have a plenty food in their house, or the people they don't have even one dot of food in their
For the
house.
poor people also fast, who are
So,
Muslim.
so I like that interpretation is fine, but this is only specific for the people that they don't know hunger. It's fine to say it. But practically fasting, because it's a mandatory, it's a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala among the believers that they said, we're Muslim and we're submitting the will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's part of the main pillars.
It's like, humility. It's not humility, but it's like kind of like to put your mindset of how this person feels. Because sometimes they're just too busy with their life that, and sometimes people just waste food, and it's just kind of putting it in that perspective like, there is people who feel like this every day, or sometimes they don't have anything to eat until, I don't know, maybe 3 days. It's just for you to kind of humiliate yourself a little bit and take away that ego and feel that, what these poor people, they are going through, and to see what Allah has given you.
That's it. You reached the ultimate point. It's practically fasting. Number one, it's obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us the awareness about this tremendous bounty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us every day, and we are taking it for granted.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. That because we get to be too busy sometimes in this worldly life, we forget this tremendous bounty. It will help us to refresh our mind, to refresh our heart, to reset our faith to the best point ever, that we will be able to clear out ourselves and put ourselves in a better situation. So when Ramadan start, and Ramadan, the point of it, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us with Ramadan, because this is the only way that we're gonna be helped to be getting better year after year. Ramadan has to help us to be better year after year, not worse year after year. This is what we're supposed to be careful about. I guess sometimes you are missing the reason of Ramadan. So when a lot of the scholars and a lot of our religious leaders, we ask us, read the Quran. Read the Quran, because that was the tradition of the Prophet ﷺ. This is how he did, and we are commanded to follow his tradition. So he used to read the Quran, we have to read the Quran. If you're gonna tell me read the whole Quran, yeah, read the whole Quran. The Sahaba did the same thing, and they taught us the same thing, and they taught us the scholar that they ended up teaching us. So let's read the Quran. If you can't read it, hear it. Learn to read it. Hear it from others. It's a time for you to reconnect, because the Quran is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and is the month, Ramadan is the month where the Quran, it was revealed. So it's part of it, like a traditional. It's a tradition of Ramadan to read the Quran. It's part of it. Now, we're not going to go into too much of details about people they pray 20, people they pray 8. Both of them, they're fine. Focus on the bounty. Don't get into only thinking about why we're doing this, why we're doing that. Either way, the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't pray together. He didn't pray, Imam, for Taraweeh all the night. So it's fine. Go pray them, part of them in the house. It's fine. Follow the tradition of the Prophet ﷺ. Let's not look into every Islamic event that has a bounty and making it as a plot or a plateau for people, just start to debate or to fight, instead of being busy to to grasp from this goodness, we are making it something
complicated.
Not only complicated, we are practically going off the track, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made these events to unite us, and we are using it as a disunity.
To divide ourselves.
As a disunity, we are misguiding ourselves by ourselves.
We're not. You're not seeing the main point. That's not the main point. you know that's why you're doing the opposite of unity.
We have to refocus on the reality. Nothing is a substitute of anything. Every act of worship, it's an act of worship by itself. You're gonna be rewarded according to this act of worship by itself. The act of worship, it's not a place for us to decide which one I'm going to do. It's the mandatory act of worship that they are part of the five pillars of Islam. The five Islamic pillars. The five Islam pillars. The 5 pillars of Islam. Name them the way you want it.
Which are
what? It's something mandatory upon us to do. You cannot choose one on top of the other.
Yeah.
What are the 5 pillars of Islam?
I can say in Arabic if you want.
Yeah, no problem. Say it the way that you want.
بني الإسلام على 5 أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله إقام الصلاة
إقام الصلاة
إقام الصلاة and I know that
إيتاء الزكاة
زكاة
صوم
رمضان وحج البيت
من استطاع إليه
I didn't say it in a long time, but
no problem, it's fine.
I could say it in English for you too. You do praying, zakat, which is donation.
It's a charity. But this is the mandatory charity. Okay. No problem.
The main charity, the sum of the fasting of Ramadan, and then the Hajj.
For whomever he's able to.
Yeah.
Only
I'm sorry, I butchered a lot. The one in Arabic. I thought I still had it in my head.
No, it's still in your head. It's fine.
It's not coming out.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. It's good.
He got shocked.
No, I'm fine. Still fine. Alhamdulillah. I'm not too shocked. So these are, you cannot choose. It's not to choose. Okay? It's not to choose. So the mandatory zakat, it has its own regulation. And these are the 5 main pillars in Islam. You have to learn them. The bare minimum of you to learn these 5 pillars with their regulation, so you apply them in your life. You cannot just live yourself without any of this knowledge, and you are expecting to be the winner in the life and afterlife. No, you have to seek the knowledge. Because I say, okay, to be Muslim, it's almost you have to do these 5 pillars, because these are the 5 pillars of your Islam, that you are on the path. You want only to learn one of them and disregard all the others.
How about this
and you want to be on the right path?
How about this question?
How are you going to find yourself on the right path if you don't know the other?
No. The question is, why are you aiming to go to the lowest Jannah? Why can't you just try to aim to be the highest?
No. I agree with you. It's like life. You are aiming for the best. Why are you not aiming for the best for afterlife? Unless if you are doubting about afterlife. This is another thing. We're not going to open it right now. But this is how it is. I feel.
Maybe sometimes people because I heard a lot of people, it's just like, at least I'm going to go to the Jannah. Like, at least. I don't need to be the highest. I just don't want to be in hell.
I understand. Again, I understand.
But, use this to, it's like, as I said, it's easy. It's so easy because you're already getting a bunch of good deeds and all the inner devils are all locked up.
Okay, again, not our inner devils, they're not locked up, don't worry. This is the misconception that people, Maradatul Jinn it's the chief of the Jinn. They are the people that they're going to be locked
inner
up.
devils.
No. Our inner is gonna be inside. This is Najdain. That you have a good side, bad side is gonna be existing.
Another thing that probably other people are gonna say that I'm the bad person.
No. It's you look. Anybody going to be a bad person? Okay, I'm gonna take it from a youth direction. And I heard this, and I keep on, advising all the youth, and just telling you the same word advice that I'm advising them. Once you get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the good side of you is gonna be the winner, because you're gonna be supported by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The more you have knowledge, the less you have doubts, the more your good side is gonna be overcoming the bad side inside you. Number one. The qareen, which is, the bad students or the bad follower of shaitan that is gonna be attached to you to deviate you, that it's not gonna have no upper hand on you, because that qareen is gonna have upper hands against you the moment your bad side inside you is bigger than the good side inside you. And the bad side inside you, it will be growing the moment that you have too much of doubts. And these too much of doubts are because of a less knowledge. So the less knowledge is gonna affect these two sides, your bad side and your qareen, that is, one of the follower of shaitan that's supposed to be attached to you till your death to deviate you. They're not gonna have no power over you the moment that you have the knowledge and applicable knowledge in your life, which is the practice. Once you have knowledge, you have practice, the good side is overcoming everything else. But let's say, oh, I have knowledge, but you're not practicing. Well, it's like, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about, Bani Israel. مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ حُمِّلُوا التَّوْرَةَ وَلَمْ يَحْمِلُوهَا كَمَثَلِ الْحِمَارِ يَحْمِلُ أَسْفَارًا. So we cannot just, oh, I know, but I'm not practicing. Oh, you're not practicing, so this is your good side inside you is still not, filled. It's still not empowered to be overcoming the bad side inside you. That is gonna give the power for the qareen, your qareen, to be, deviate you from the right path. Now also, this is another call, a recall for all of us, the youth. If we learn to start practicing, we supposed not to learn and ignore the knowledge, or not taking this into action. When seeking knowledge, why we're seeking knowledge? We're seeking knowledge to know the truth, to practice it in our life, to empower our practice, to empower our good side inside us. If we're not empowering our good side inside us, we're not gonna take it into action. So the bad side inside us is gonna stay still powerful against us. This is the wrong thing that we practically encounter to do in our daily life. Oh, I know I'm supposed to be praying Fajr, but I don't bother myself. I know I'm supposed to be good with my parents, but I don't bother myself. I know I'm supposed to be good with my classmates, but I don't bother myself. I need to bully them. I need to be bad with them. I need to be disrespectful with the students, with the teachers. I need to be disrespectful with my neighbors. I have to be bad. I know this is wrong, and I'm not acting accordingly. I'm acting the other way around. So in order for me to help myself, I need to take the knowledge that I know, the guidance that I know, into action. And this is what practically we're not doing in our life. We're only acting against our knowledge. And we accuse everybody else, but not ourselves. So, the secret potion, I give it. Let's start by our heart. Said the practice of the heart is the intention.
Yes.
Intent good, then your heart will help you out against, your bad inclination.
I mean, sometimes for me, just, I'll start making dua that I will get closer to Allah, and it's just, simple words. And when you go that step forward, that one step, by just saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please, at least if you say English or Arabic, at least like that one step.
No problem.
I want to get closer to you. Help me, guide me. And that's one step. And Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will be happy and He will guide you. Like, because that's like one step to Him. Every time you get next to Him, it's that one step. Like, you have to just at least, don't think about the long road. Think about it one step at a time. And then each step will be easier than the next.
But also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to emphasize your point, He promised us, you get closer to me, I get closer to you.
That's what that's what I'm
So
saying.
you step forward, I
That's
will
more
step
better wording.
closer to you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only wants us to get closer with one footstep, and will come to us, more than 100 yards closer. So again, the secret potion of us empowering our good side against our bad side, it just to start it with the intention, with the hard practice. The hard practice, it's starting with the intention, the good intention. Intend to do good, intend to pray every day, the 5 daily prayer every day before you sleep. Intend that you want to be good, intend that you want to do optional prayer, intend that you want to be nice with people, with the parents, with siblings. This is the intention that you practice every day is going to help you out towards the action, because you have the knowledge but you're not acting accordingly. Intend to do the good, so you will your bad inclination will start going towards the good, not towards the bad. Then in that way you will be empowering yourself in the good side, and let this bad side inside you to be diminishing and does not have a power over you.
Right.
This is the differences. This is how is going to work. This is how is going to happen. And last thing, I want to end it up over here. This is how we're supposed to be ready for Ramadan. So let's start our heart practice by intending to do good every day, about the 5 daily prayers, to intend good about the optional prayers, to intend good about reading Quran, to intend good about being nice with our parents, to intend good to be nice with our kids, to intend good to do goods with our siblings, with everybody around us, as a Muslim, non-Muslim. Let's to start be intending to do good. And this is how our heart is going. You're empowering your heart to start taking you to the action. And then your good side is gonna be empowered and taking the action. And your bad side is gonna be diminishing and has no power over you. This is how we're supposed to start it before Ramadan and during Ramadan. I guess this is how you start to be practicing and helping yourself to get into the right path, because the knowledge is not missing too much. We need all of us to empower our knowledge, but this is the way how you take the knowledge, from information to action. Anything else you want to add?
I mean, it's still going with what you're saying. It's just like exercising. Sometimes, like, you feel you want to do, let's say, 50 push-ups, but you never did one before. You need to start off with the one to get comfortable with it, so you can do it the right way. I'm saying as a metaphor.
No, that's good. That's good.
Like sometimes for me when I exercise, I'm like, I need to do 100 of them, but sometimes I didn't do I didn't even do like 5 in a long time. So it's more like, let me start off with this, like 5 that I have to perfect it, because you cannot do like let's say crunch up. It would not, even if you do 100 times, if you're not doing the right position, you're not going to get the abs that you were wanting. You get me? And if you aim too high, you'll quit. So start off slowly, so when you get to go to that 100, it'll be easier and easier each time. As a metaphor in Islam, like what in with praying and with fasting, with all these getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why one of the first steps, like for me, what I would do when I would find myself, because there's a lot of things going on, and I understand that there's a lot of things going on with if it's either school, homework, hanging out with friends. There's like a lot of things that will like slowly let you kind of slip away. And so when you find yourself kind of slipping away, make that dua. It's just a couple of words, and remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, I want to get closer to you. Don't let let me slip away from Islam. Like, something simple.
Inshallah, that would be beneficial. If you have any question, just throw them inside the comment area. and Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.